Oh yes, my favorite cup in all of Mario Kart Wii, the Star Cup. We are going to be attempting this, as I do every Mario Kart Cup, without the use of items. Rules are simple. I can unintentionally drop any items whatsoever, be it a banana, be it a mushroom, etc. The only other caveat is that if ever I get one of the storm clouds, I must reset the race/cup in its entirety. Well, that was fast. Anyways, rewind. Welcome to Shatter Our Souls with Novaria. And as I specified, this is my favorite cup. And the margin isn't exactly close. With Mario Kart Wii, a lot of the cups end up having one or two fantastic races in my opinion. Whether it's Coconut Mall and DK Summit, the lovely trip through space with Rainbow Road Bowser's Castle. But this is the cup that I feel truly encapsulates the upper echelon of success and consistency within Mario Kart Wii. And the reason behind it actually comes twofold. The first is that Mario Kart Wii's first track of the cup, Daisy Circuit, is actually a really uniquely shaped track with a lot of good locations to do some drift boosts, get yourself a couple shortcuts, areas where you are less likely to get affected by shells. All this culminates in decisions, options, choices to be made for the player that are meant to make this track stand out as something more of an advanced track. Now, the reason why I personally prefer more advanced tracks is because, for myself, I have always been a runner-style player. And that's kind of how it's always been. Unfortunately, I haven't had many people close to me that have been of a similar skill level to be able to race alongside me as a runner to begin with. So, unfortunately, that's kind of what we're up against. The result of that is these options and choices that can be made make this particular track stand out as being one of many that just feels right. Add in the beautiful sunset orange color palette, the beautiful track as a whole, the lighthouse at the end. It's perfect in my opinion as far as a standard city style track could go. But you'll find that this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. This is just a glimpse of what is to come. Because one of, if not my favorite track in the entire game is Koopa Cape. And Koopa Cape is one that admittedly relies a little bit more on spectacle. And you'll find that it's something that I have a soft spot for. Reality is that there is enough done right with how Koopa Cape is designed that it really makes it so that, wow, that's a really bad start. It makes each attempt at the track feel good. Yeah, you have a massive jump, no barriers on the sides here. You have the river run. You have the underwater section. All of these in Mario Kart in general are actually rather impressive. I think my favorite part of the track has to be the river run, just because it is a unique use of what I would call an environmental effect. It's intended to give the player a boost, make it so that you have something a little more unique to go with. It's intuitive in that you're expected to use the river as a speed boost. Avoiding the river is just silly as a result of how much of a boost it offers. But you can't always use the water because it'll also push you off the track at the end of the lap. Unless, of course, you have something like a mushroom, which I can't use. So, all in all, this track has A, options, and B, it has enough going for it as far as spectacle, as far as nuance, as far as different approaches to the same situations. But I've always found that Cooper Cape is actually one of the better designed tracks, just in general. Now, argue with me if you want, I'm not gonna say that anyone is necessarily wrong, but this to me is absolutely delightful. I love this track. And if I'm being honest, the hairpin turns, the questionable what am I driving into at the start of the tunnel system, it always makes me giggle. It always gives me something to say, yeah, this is cool, this is different, this is unique. And I will always say uniqueness is one of the best things you can do with a race. Because if your racetrack is formulaic, I always find that a left turn followed by a left turn, lap 2, doesn't really engage me. And this is just me. I'm somebody who doesn't necessarily enjoy the idea of NASCAR. But Formula 1 racing? That's something I can get behind. All of this is to say that the design of the kart's tracks on Mario Kart are something to behold, something very special, especially knowing how much goes into the creation of these games. Now, I will admit that this cup being my absolute favorite isn't necessarily the most revolutionary thing I will ever say. When it comes to a lot of them, first and foremost, I prefer the Nitro Cups over the Retro Cups in Mario Kart Wii. Secondly, each cup has something unique and something interesting to offer. But to say that Dry Ruins or Moonview Highway has the same drive, the same pull to it as Bowser's Castle and Rainbow Road just isn't necessarily accurate. Anywho, third race, Maple Treeway. Maple Treeway is one of those courses that took a little bit of time for me to kind of figure out and understand why I liked it or didn't. And reality is that for a long time, especially as a kid, the only thing that drew me into this course was the cannon. But as an individual who has played the game now at almost 30 years old, the design of it being based on a, well, dare I say, a gigantic tree is actually pretty unique. Instead of driving on standard roadways, you're effectively driving on hardwood. You're effectively driving on, well, tree limbs. You're going to be falling off if anything goes wrong or something. So there's a little bit more of the less spectacle in terms of, oh yeah, I did this massive thing, and more about the, I suppose, nuance of the location. Maple Treeway is one of those tracks that I personally like as an adult, but it always fell flat for me as a kid. Which is kind of funny, because if you compare Maple Treeway to my favorite Mario Kart Double Dash track, DK Mountain, you'll find that it's actually quite similar. It is a track that starts with a bit of a left turn that leads to a cannon. From there, you start at the top of a mountain, or in this case, near the top of the tree, drive a little bit up, and then the rest of your track is back down said tree or obstacle, effectively designed with the same premise in mind. And I don't necessarily know why one appeals to me more than the other. My guesstimation on it was that when it came to DK Mountain, the idea of the volcano, and admittedly as a kid I always imagined driving down the side of a volcano being chased by hot magma. And I don't really think that's something that I can necessarily ignore. Maple Treeway seems, in contrast, much more home-like, much more comfy, cozy style racetrack. And I do believe that's intentional, and that's a good thing. Every track should have... Not every track needs to be the most over-the-top kind of race imaginable. Sometimes it's nice to have a cozy sprint through the treetops, or even a squeaky clean rush through the... Yeah, never mind. All of Mario Kart Wii's booster... or Mario Kart 8's booster course paths, some of them are really interesting, some of them don't quite hit it. But that's with anything. And I will be the guy to admit wholeheartedly I have my biases. Anywho, coming in at the end of this cup is a track that I don't think needs much of an introduction. If you played... Wow, I'm struggling right now. The track that doesn't need much of an introduction is Mario Kart Wii's Grumble Volcano. And Grumble Volcano is one of those tracks that, once again, I say is iconic. It does a great job with what it's given. But doing a great job with what it's given doesn't necessarily do much. Mario Kart Wii's Grumble Volcano has a few major things going for it. First and foremost, it has the options setup, left or right. At least 3 locations within the track, you have the option to go left and take a safer path, or go right and take a safer path. Maybe you're more interested in the high road, the low road. Maybe you want to take a shortcut. All these options are available. Now, aside from the fact that this is also one of the most broken tracks in the game, I definitely see it as being one of the most fluid as well. Mario Kart Wii's attempted and tried to allow for change within the track as a whole. Some tracks, like Mario Kart Double Dash's Luigi Circuit, changes, gets wider, thinner, or even removes barriers altogether at higher speeds. Mario Kart Wii took that general mentality and made the track more fluid in nature. And by that I mean that the obstacles that you experience at the beginning of Grumble Volcano do not match the obstacles that you face on lap 3. And this is kind of an important piece to note, because as the track is more exposed to magma, more shortcuts, more pathways become available, and simultaneously some pathways disappear. It makes for a very dynamic, very interesting, very play it by ear type of track. Now, if you're like me, you'll end up playing relatively safe at all times, avoiding those locations that dip into the lava later on in the track as early as lap 1. If you're not like me, congratulations, you like living life on the wild side, and I can respect that. And so, this track showcased once again that Mario Kart Wii wasn't afraid of testing some new ideas. Does every idea land? No. And this is going to be, I will be very much one of the first to say it. Not every idea that will ever be made for a kart racer will land. But in the same way, you have to acknowledge and admire the level of dedication that would have went into making this track, making this work. And I want to really emphasize, making something like this work is insanely difficult. Making Mario Kart as a whole is insanely difficult. And so, I do want to give credit to the developers for what they managed to pull off. A game that, at the time, I feel was revolutionary. Allowing both the young, the old, and everybody in between the gamers and the non-gamers alike, to play a game together without necessarily messing around too much with ridiculous ideas. Instead, just having a fun kart racer on a console designed for everyone. Anyways, with that, Kate, really? Can you stop shocking me? As I was saying, with that, we are at the end of the cup, which means time for the award ceremony. Now, if you like this idea, if you like what I'm saying, or have any ideas for future content, I would love if you could fire off a comment down below. And while you're there, if you don't mind leaving a like, a subscribe, it would greatly help boost the channel. Anyways, that's all for now. Until next time, be good to one another, and have a good one.